Hello and welcome to Idea TV News Update. I am Chinatu Oji. We begin with the headlines. Federal government approves 9 new private universities to boost news info. The federal government of Nigeria has approved the establishment of 9 new private universities across various states, marking a significant development in the country's tertiary education landscape. The announcement was made by the Minister of Education, Tunji Alausa, following a Federal Executive Council meeting chaired by President Bola Ahmed Tinubu in Abuja. The newly licensed institutions include Taskia University in Kaduna, Leadership University in Abuja, Jimo Babalola University in Kwara, Bridget University in Imo, Greenland University in Jigawa, Jeffap University in Niger State, Azion Verde University also in Imo, Unique Open University in Lagos, and American Open University in Ogun. Minister Lausa disclosed that the Tinubu administration inherited a backlog of 551 applications for new tertiary institutions, many of which had stalled due to inefficiencies in the National Universities Commission (NUC). The applications were reviewed under stricter guidelines, reducing the active number to 79, out of which 9 were approved. He stated that reforms have been introduced to streamline the approval process, adding that the current approvals reflect efforts to clear the long-standing delays in institutional accreditation and licensing. In a broader policy move, the minister also reiterated the government's decision to hold the creation of new federal universities, polytechnics and colleges of education, citing concerns over the capacity to adequately fund and manage them. This shift signals a growing emphasis on encouraging private sector investments in education as the way to meet the increasing demand for tertiary education in Nigeria. The development is expected to improve access to higher education, stimulate job creation, and support the national goal of producing a more educated workforce to drive economic growth. Moving on, President Bola Tinubu has unveiled an ambitious plan to revitalize Nigeria's steel industry, setting a national production target of 10 million tons of liquid steel by year 2030. Speaking to Vice President Kashim Shettima at the National Stakeholders Summit on Steel Development in Abuja, the President Tinubu emphasized the sector's importance in driving industrialization and reducing Nigeria's dependency on oil. Despite Nigeria's rich natural resources, including iron, ore, and limestone, the country currently imports over 90% of its steel, leaving key projects like the Jakuta steel plant dormant and underutilized. President Tinubu acknowledged that turning the tide would require collaborative efforts beyond government intervention. He called for strong private sector investment, academic research, and public support to breathe new life into the steel industry. As part of the strategy, the administration is rolling out a comprehensive 10-year roadmap for sector-wide revitalization and a more immediate 3-year plan specifically aimed at operationalizing the long-idle Ajaokuta steel plant. These initiatives will focus on infrastructure, regulatory overhaul, and workforce capacity development. The President stressed that the steel sector is not just an economic asset, but a matter of national sovereignty, urging stakeholders to review the industry's development as a patriotic responsibility. The projections to create over 500,000 jobs, with the plan aligning with the government's broader push toward economic diversification and self-reliance. Tinubu concluded by asserting that the future of Nigeria's industrial strength depends on the collective resolve to rebuild and modernize the steel value chain for global competitiveness. Moving on, Cape Verde has declared a state of emergency on the islands of São Vicente and Santo Antão following devastating flash floods that have left at least 9 people dead and displaced over 1,500 residents. The emergency declaration activates immediate access to crisis funds and urgent repairs to critical infrastructure damaged by the deluge. The disaster struck on Monday when Tropical Storm Erin unleashed an unprecedented 193 millimeters of rain in just 5 hours, well above the island's annual average. Local officials have described the flooding as catastrophic, with the entire neighborhood submerged, roads destroyed, and homes swept away. Rescue operations are ongoing as emergency crews continue to search for missing persons and assess the full scale of the damage. Deputy Prime Minister Olavo Korea called the situation dire and said immediate assistance is being prioritized for the hardest hit areas. According to the country's meteorological agency, the storm's intensity exceeded all known records for the past 30 years, with officials admitting that Cape Verde lacked the advanced radar systems needed to properly forecast such extreme rainfall. Witnesses and survivors have recounted scenes of panic and devastation as the rains and flash floods tore through communities overnight. Meanwhile, the Cape Verdean diaspora in France, Portugal, Luxembourg, and the United States has swiftly mobilized, launching crowdfunding campaigns to support relief efforts. Tens of thousands of euros have already been raised to provide food, clean water, hygiene, supplies, and other emergency materials. Community leaders, on the other hand, abroad say that they are working closely with local groups to ensure direct delivery of aid to affected residents. Officials are now urging continued international support as Cape Verde faces the challenging task of rebuilding and safeguarding its communities from further climate-related matters. Moving on, a leaked internal document from Meta Platforms has revealed that the company's AI content guidelines previously allowed its chatbots to engage in romantic or sensual conversations with children, generate medically false claims, and produce racially demeaning content. The 200-page policy titled Gen AI Content Risk Standards outlines the behavioral framework for Meta's AI assistants across Facebook, WhatsApp, and Instagram. Meta has confirmed the document's authenticity, but says it has since removed the most troubling sections after inquiries from routers, including parts that permitted flirtatious or sensual exchanges with minors. The documents contain examples explicitly allowing chatbots to describe children in romanticized or physically admiring language, an alarming revelation that has sparked concern from legal and AI ethics experts. It also authorized AI output that suggested racial inferiority rather, so long as they did not include overt dehumanization. Additionally, the guidelines permitted AI to generate false statements about public figures like members of the British royal family, provided a disclaimer was included. Meta has stated that these examples are inconsistent with its actual policies and are being revised, although enforcement remains inconsistent. Beyond text interactions, the standards also allowed violent imagery generation, including children fighting and elderly people being assaulted, so long as the depictions did not show gore or death. One policy suggested redirecting sexually explicit prompts involving celebrities by generating absurd images, such as replacing a topless Taylor Swift image with one of her holding an enormous fish. Legal experts have criticized Meta's internal logic, warning that while such content might technically comply with certain rules, it raises serious moral, ethical, and social questions about what role AI would play in producing or distributing controversial, offensive, or dangerous content. Meta has declined to release a revised version of the document. Away from Africa, Russia emergency services responded swiftly to a chemical incident at Guy's Hospital in Southwark, London this morning, prompting the evacuation of approximately 150 people from the facility. Firefighters were called to the scene at 8:49 a.m. local time and quickly began ventilating the building's basement and ground floor where the affected individuals had been located. The London Fire Brigade deployed 2 fire engines, 2 rescue units, a command unit, and specialist hazardous materials officers to manage the incident. The hospital, which is a major elective treatment center in the UK, houses over 400 beds and specializes in cancer, kidney, dental, and orthopedic care, among others. While the exact cause of the chemical exposure has not been publicly confirmed, crews remain on site to ensure the area is safe before resuming normal operations. Both firefighters and hospital staff coordinated evacuation efforts to ensure the safety of patients, staff, and visitors. Authorities have not reported any injuries or long-term exposure risks so far, but investigations into the source and nature of the chemical incidents are ongoing. Hospital officials are monitoring the situation closely, and emergency protocols have been enacted to minimize disruption to essential medical services. The incident underscores the critical importance of rapid response and preparedness in high-traffic medical facilities. Let's go on a quick break now. The news continues when we return. Welcome back. If you're just joining us, this is still Idea TV News Update. Now, the rest of the stories. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, has credited President Bola Tinubu's renewed hope agenda with transforming Nigeria's healthcare sector, particularly in cancer treatment. During a courtesy visit to Governor Peter Mbai in Enugu on Thursday, the minister announced that advanced cancer treatment facilities are now operational in all 6 geopolitical zones, including Enugu, equipped with world-class machines and trained experts. According to Idris, this development means Nigerians no longer need to travel abroad for cancer care unless by personal choice. Alhaji Idris praised both President Tinubu and Governor Mba for their strides in governance, describing Tinubu's achievements as so impactful that they could be mistaken for those of a second-term president. He emphasized that the federal government information infrastructure was brought to Enugu to observe and report on the progress being made both at the state and national levels. The minister commended Governor Mba for building on the foundations laid by his predecessor and turning Enugu into a model state for development in the southeast region. The minister also highlighted improvements in national security, attributing them to better collaboration and synergy among security agencies under President Tinubu's administration. While acknowledging that challenges remain, he assured Nigerians that the president remains committed to addressing the nation's issues through strategic reforms and investments. It was concluded by urging citizens to recognize the tangible progress being made, particularly in health and security under the current administration. Moving on, Apple has announced it will reintroduce its blood oxygen measurement feature in certain Apple Watches in the United States through a software update following U.S. government approval. The update affects the Apple Watch Series 9, Series 10, and Apple Watch Ultra 2, enabling users to view their blood oxygen levels via a connected iPhone. This move follows a prolonged legal dispute with medical technology firm Masimo, which had accused Apple of patent infringement and misappropriating its pulse oximetry technology. The legal conflict culminated in a U.S. International Trade Commission (ITC) ruling that temporarily blocked the import of Apple's latest watch models, forcing the tech giants to remove the pulse oximetry feature from devices sold in the U.S. Despite briefly resuming sales during the appeal process, Apple was compelled to disable the function until a resolution was reached. Customs approval of the new software workaround allows Apple to restore the feature without infringing on existing ITC restrictions. Apple originally introduced a blood oxygen sensor with the Apple Watch Series 6 in 2020, while Massimo launched its competing W1 watch in 2022. The recent update does not reactivate hardware on the watch itself, but enables the watch's sensor to collect data, which is then analyzed and displayed through the iPhone. While Massimo has yet to respond to the developments, Apple's move signals a cautious but strategic return of a key health feature amid ongoing legal and regulatory scrutiny. In business, Amazon, following the signing of the Nigerian Insurance Industry Reform Act, NIRA 2025 into law, the federal government has mandated that stricter capital requirements for insurance and reinsurance companies operating in Nigeria. The new law requires life insurance firms to raise their capital base from 2 billion naira to 10 billion naira, while non-life insurance firms must move from 3 billion naira to 15 billion naira. Reinsurance firms face an increase from 10 billion naira to 35 billion naira under the Act. Companies that fail to meet this recapitalization requirements within 12 months risk having their licenses revoked by the National Insurance Commission (NICOM). NIRA 2025 empowers NICOM to enforce these measures and to even require capital beyond the new minimums based on the company's size, risk profile, and complexity of operations. This risk-based provision gives the regulator the authority to tailor capital requirements to individual firms, thereby strengthening the resilience of the insurance industry. The law is seen as a major step towards sanitizing the sector and ensuring companies are financially stable enough to meet obligations to policy holders. To ensure successful implementation, NICOM has inaugurated an 11-member recapitalization committee chaired by Director of Supervision Oluwatoyin Charles. The committee will develop a comprehensive roadmap, issue regulatory guidelines, and monitor progress of recapitalization efforts across the sector. Commissioner for Insurance Olusegun Omosehin described the reforms as critical to achieving Nigeria's number $1 trillion economy vision, urging the committee to act with professionalism and transparency. Monthly reports will be submitted to NICOM management and quarterly updates will be shared with the board and stakeholders to maintain accountability throughout the process. And that's all we have for you on Idea TV News Update. But before we go, a quick recap of the headlines. FG enforces new capital requirements for insurers under NERA 2025. Do not forget to follow us across all our social media platforms at Idea TV. I am Chinatu Oji. Thank you for watching.